There are souls born carrying a strange kind of light, gentle, yet profound, warm yet lonely. They can feel the pain of others as if it were their own. They possess the intuition of someone who has lived many lifetimes, and they love with a heart that knows no limits. These are the empath souls who came into this world to heal, yet often must learn the lesson hidden within the shadow of love itself. They come to illuminate, but that very light makes them magnets for souls that have not yet been healed. And so, the universe sends them a person, not the right one, but the narcissist, not as punishment, but as awakening. The narcissist does not arrive to destroy the empath's life, but to expose what has been buried deep within, the fear of abandonment, the longing for validation, and the mistaken belief that love means enduring pain. In the universe, nothing is random. No one enters your life without carrying a piece of the lesson your soul needs. The narcissist is the distorted mirror reflecting the parts of you that have never been loved, never been acknowledged. They are the living embodiment of what Carl Jung called the shadow, the part you've hidden behind your smile, your kindness, and your compassion. When the empath meets the narcissist, it is the meeting of light and darkness, of one who seeks to love the world and one who knows only how to love themselves. And it is at that intersection that awakening begins. Loving a narcissist is not a mistake. It is a sacred initiation of the soul, a test through which the empath must learn about boundaries, the power of silence, and a kind of love that no longer means saving but awareness. For the universe does not send you the one who makes you feel safe. It sends you the one who makes you grow. It does not send a reward, it sends a lesson. And before granting you true love, it sends the person who forces you to face everything within yourself that you have yet to understand. Within every empathic soul, there are two heartbeats, one of light and one of shadow. The light allows them to see the beauty in others, but the shadow makes them mistake compassion for obligation. It is through this inner conflict that the narcissist finds their way in. They can smell kindness the way predators smell blood. They enter through charm, through an intense gaze, through words filled with empathy, as if they understand you more deeply than anyone ever has. But what they truly see is not you, but the energy they lack. They come to you not for love, but because the light within you reflects the part of their soul that has long since died. And you, with your empath's heart, mistake that connection for destiny. You call it soulmate, twin flame, or someone I've known in a past life. But in truth, it is not destiny. It is karmic purification, a ritual where two souls are drawn together to illuminate what remains unhealed. The narcissist does not love you. They need you to maintain the illusion that they still exist. They feed on your energy, your praise, your trust, and in return they project their darkness onto you. You begin to doubt yourself, and in your desperation to prove that love can save them, you fall into the deepest trap of all. You start loving your role as the savior more than yourself. And the universe allows this not out of cruelty, but because there is no other way for you to learn the sacred limits of love. When Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, he was describing this exact moment. The narcissist is an extreme mirror, magnifying every part of you that you have yet to accept. If you have feared loneliness, they will abandon you. If you have craved recognition, they will ignore you. If you have sacrificed yourself to be loved, they will drain you. Every wound they inflict is a dark ink mark from the unconscious, pleading to be seen. And when you ask why, the universe answers with silence, because you are the answer. You were not born to learn how to love a narcissist. You were born to learn that you no longer need one. Eventually, after all the heartbreak, you start noticing something strange. Every person you have ever loved seems to share the same face. Only the names and timing differ. No matter who they were or where they came from, the ending was always the same. They made you feel not enough. And then you awaken to what Jung called the mirror phase, the stage where the soul begins to see itself through others. Everyone you once called destiny was in truth a reflection of the parts of yourself you had not yet embraced. You were drawn to those who appeared strong because deep down you feared showing your own strength. You loved those who radiated confidence because you still doubted your own worth. You chased after the emotionally distant because you had not yet admitted how often you turned away from your own feelings. Every person you've ever loved, narcissist or kind soul, was playing the role of a fragment of your own psyche seeking reunion. And once you understand this, the obsession dissolves, leaving only clarity. The universe teaches in strange ways, not through words, but through mirrors. It sends you people you believe are the objects of love, when in truth they are guides of awareness. They anger you, trigger jealousy, break your heart, because only intense emotion can pull the unconscious to the surface. And you begin to see, they did not hurt me. They only touched what within me was still unhealed. Jung once said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. Every person you meet is a map drawn by your unconscious, trying to tell you, look, this is the fragment of your soul you have forgotten. The controlling partner shows you where you lost your power. The indifferent one shows you where you detached from your feelings. The betrayer shows you where you once betrayed your own intuition. When you start listening, instead of judging, seeing instead of running, the mirror clears and you realize love was never a two-player game, but a one-soul journey toward wholeness, reflected through another's face. That's when you understand why old relationships could never be saved, because they were never meant to last, only to awaken. Those souls came, played their reflective roles, and left once the lesson was complete. If you keep trying to hold on, you're not keeping love, you're clinging to an unfinished lesson. And then you wonder why the same story repeats. But in truth, there are no cycles, only unlearned lessons returning in new disguises. Once you begin to integrate the parts you've rejected, a miracle happens. You judge less, you fear less, and strangely, those same types of people stop appearing in your life. Not because they've changed, but because your frequency has. The ones who once triggered your pain no longer have power because you've embraced the darkness they once mirrored. You no longer need them to make you feel enough, because now you are enough. This is when love begins to change color, no longer bright and burning, but deep and still. You no longer seek someone like the light, because you've become the light itself. You no longer need anyone to heal you, because you have become the healer. Everyone who once hurt you now becomes a marker on the map of your awakening. You look back and smile, realizing that without them, you would have never found yourself. After all the heartbreaks, a layer of illusion within you finally falls away. You begin to realize that the love you've been seeking can never come from another person. It can only come from accepting yourself. You learn to sit in silence, no longer trying to explain, no longer begging to be understood. You learn to love without saving, to give without losing yourself, to walk away without hatred. That is the first moment you step into the alchemy of the soul, where pain turns into awareness and awareness turns into freedom. But this path is not gentle. When you start withdrawing your energy from the narcissist, they panic, because you are the mirror in which they see themselves exist. When you go silent, they feel invisible. When you stop reacting, they feel powerless. They will try everything: pity, seduction, threats, nostalgia, to pull you back into the old cycle. And you, if still attached to the role of the rescuer, may fall into the trap once more. But if you stand firm, if you look at them not with anger but with understanding, you will see something extraordinary. The narcissist is nothing more than a wounded child wearing a mask of power. And when you realize that, hatred dissolves. Only clarity remains. In that instant, you have stepped out of the game. Jung called this moment the reconciliation of light and shadow, the transcendent function. It is when you no longer fight your darkness, but begin to integrate it. You understand that light cannot exist without shadow, and that love cannot be profound without first being betrayed. You no longer seek someone better. You seek a truer version of yourself. And that is when the universe begins to shift its orbit around you. When your inner energy changes, everything around you changes. You stop attracting souls who need saving and start drawing those who have already learned to save themselves. The right person appears not because you prayed for them, but because you have become the frequency they can recognize. True love doesn't arrive to complete you. It comes to mirror the wholeness you have already found. It doesn't begin with intoxication, but with stillness. It doesn't say, "You make me feel enough," but rather, "We are both enough and now we share." That is the energy of souls who have passed through Nigredo and entered Rubedo, the golden stage of the soul, where love is no longer a need but a conscious act. From the universe's perspective, the relationship between an empath and a narcissist is a lesson in rebirth. The universe sends the narcissist to break your old self, to make you fall, to strip you bare, to force you to face yourself with no armor left. Then it sends you loneliness, so that you can learn to fill it from within. Only when you no longer fear being alone can true love find you, not to fill a void, but to join your fullness. The universe operates by laws that are ruthlessly fair. You cannot keep a love for which your consciousness is not yet ready. It will take away everything you cling to until you learn to love without possession, to give without depletion, to see without judgment. And when you reach that point, you understand that no one truly leaves you. They merely complete their role in your awakening. The narcissist comes to awaken you. The right one comes to walk beside you. One teaches you pain so you can learn boundaries. The other teaches you peace so you can understand real love. And between them stands another you, the one who has learned to love without needing to be saved. And that is the deepest reason why the universe sends the empath, the narcissist, before sending the right person, not to punish, but to purify, not to make you lose faith, but to rebuild it on sacred ground, not to extinguish your heart, but to turn it from a fragile candle into an eternal flame. Because only when you are strong enough to love without control, awake enough to see what is reflection and what is truth, and whole enough to stand alone in your own light, only then can true love recognize you. And when that moment comes, you will understand. The narcissist was never a mistake. They were the door, a painful one, yes, but one that led directly to the freedom of your soul. When you begin to see yourself more clearly, when the mirror no longer frightens you, something strange begins to happen. The darkness within you starts to rise. Not to destroy you, but to test you, to see whether the light you have just found is strong enough to endure. Jung called this stage the shadow's rebellion, the moment when the old unconscious resists the birth of new awareness. For every transformation of the soul summons an equal and opposite reaction. When light enters a room long accustomed to darkness, the darkness trembles. It does not vanish. It resists. This resistance does not come from outside. It comes from deep within you. You begin to notice yourself acting against your own awareness, knowing you should let go, yet still reaching out. Knowing silence is strength, yet still explaining. Believing you've moved on, yet lying awake through the night missing them. You ask, why am I back where I started, even though I understand everything? But that very moment is when you are witnessing the real battle between consciousness and the unconscious, between the soul that is maturing and the ego that is dying. Darkness does not want to die, because it once protected you. It is the survival armor built during the years when you had no other tools. It kept you safe by making you cautious, by warning you not to love too deeply, not to trust too quickly. But now, as your new light asks you to open your heart, the darkness becomes afraid. It whispers, don't trust, don't love, don't step outside your comfort zone. It makes you doubt goodness, feel unsafe when loved, question sincerity when kindness appears. And you mistake it for intuition when in truth it is the memory of pain disguised as reason. This is where many empaths get confused. They think they're sensing something wrong, when in reality they are sensing the unfamiliarity of peace. They have lived so long in chaos that calm feels threatening. They have spent so many years reading other people's emotions that when no decoding is required, they feel empty. They have loved through rescuing. So when someone loves them without needing rescue, they feel lost. The darkness within does not trust this new light. It doubts, it tests, it probes. And it only dissolves when you prove that you are strong enough to remain in the light even while the darkness screams. Resistance is not failure. It is the evidence of real transformation. Nothing in the human psyche disappears quietly. Every change demands an inner conflict as its price. The darkness will pull you back to old memories, old reflexes, old desires. It will make you feel as though you are regressing, but in truth, it is the final contraction of the snake shedding its skin. And you must be patient. You cannot defeat darkness by fighting it. You transcend it through awareness. When old emotions resurface, loneliness, fear of abandonment, the longing to be saved, do not push them away. Observe them, ask, "What have you come to tell me?" Perhaps the darkness only wants you to know that it once kept you safe, and now you can let it rest. When you look at your darkness with gratitude instead of fear, it melts into the light, no longer an enemy, but an integrated part of you. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Light does not come from denying the dark, but from touching it, acknowledging it, and allowing it to return to its rightful place within you, yet no longer in control of you. This resistance is also the universe's test. Are you truly ready to live differently? Or do you simply want to change how you feel without changing your patterns? Can you endure peace when chaos is gone? Can you stay in a healthy relationship without creating drama just because stillness feels unfamiliar? This is the stage where many return to what hurt them, not out of love, but because peace terrifies them. But if you remain steadfast, if you do not run, if you can endure the discomfort of peace, something profound happens. You begin to rewire the nervous system of your soul. You teach it that safety no longer equals chaos, that love no longer equals threat, that silence no longer equals emptiness. And day by day, breath by breath, you feel light taking root within you. By then, the darkness doesn't disappear. It simply sits beside you, understood. It no longer has to scream to be seen, because now you listen. And when darkness stops resisting, your soul grows stiller, deeper, stronger. This is the stage where the true empath transforms from one who feels the world to one who creates it, from one who reacts to life to one who shapes it consciously. And that is when the universe opens the next door, where the darkness has been redeemed, and light is no longer something to seek, but something that naturally is. There is a stage in healing that no one prepares you for. It's not when you're in the most pain, it's when you feel empty. After the darkness has stopped fighting, after the storm within has quieted, you step into a deep, sacred silence with no definition, no direction, and no idea who you are anymore. And it's there, in that space where you think you've lost everything, that you are being reborn. Jung called this stage individuation, the process of becoming oneself, when the old ego dissolves to make room for the authentic self. Everything that once defined you, the roles, the labels, the identities you clung to, begins to fall away, layer by layer. You are no longer the child who tries to please their parents, no longer the friend who listens just to be liked, no longer the lover who sacrifices themselves to stay. Those roles, once your armor for survival, now feel like empty shells. And for the first time in lifetimes, your soul breathes bare and free. But the first feeling of freedom isn't joy, it's confusion. When there is no one left to save, no one left to blame, no one left to hold on to, you face the vast emptiness of your own being. You start asking questions that have no immediate answers. If I am not my pain, not my past, not the roles I've played, then who am I? And from the depths, the voice of the universe responds with silence. Because the true identity of the soul does not emerge through words, but through the experience of presence. This is when you begin to relearn everything, not how to live, but how to be. You learn to choose without fear of being wrong, to speak without fear of loss, to love without needing an outcome. You start to realize that every small choice, a meal, a song, a conversation, is a brushstroke painting your new self into existence. No longer, what should I do to be loved? But what makes me feel alive? No longer, who do they want me to be? But who do I want to become? This is the greatest reconstruction project the soul ever undertakes, not rebuilding your life, but rebuilding your consciousness. This phase is often lonely because no one else can walk that depth with you. Those who knew the old you may feel confused. They will ask, why have you changed? Why aren't you as nice as before? Why don't you need anyone anymore? They'll call your independence cold, your silence prideful, your self-sufficiency distant. But what they're truly feeling is the loss of access to the version of you they once benefited from. And you, instead of explaining, simply smile because you understand. They are meeting their own shadow, the feeling of being abandoned, excluded, unimportant, just as you once did. And thus, the circle of awareness expands again. You begin to see the world not through judgment, but through the quiet compassion of someone who understands. Not a moral compassion, but the wisdom born of experience. The deeper you go into this reconstruction, the more miraculous it becomes. Everything that once caused you pain now becomes the raw material of your peace. You no longer need apologies to heal, because you understand that understanding itself is the highest form of apology. You no longer need justice to feel balanced, because you realize that energy always finds its own equilibrium. You no longer need others to validate your worth because you finally see it clearly, simply, undeniably. This is no longer a journey of demand, but of acceptance. Acceptance that everything is perfect in its imperfection, that nothing comes too early or too late, that even mistakes are a form of grace. And then, from that stillness, a new feeling begins to bloom: curiosity. You want to live, not to prove, but to experience. You want to travel, not to escape, but to see the world through clearer eyes. You want to love, not to fill a void, but to share your fullness. Love now is no longer a duty, but an art. You no longer need anyone to save you from loneliness because you've made peace with it. You no longer need anyone to prove your worth because you've become the living proof. When you reach this point, your energy changes in a way the universe recognizes. You no longer ask, you radiate. You no longer wait, you attract. You no longer search, you are found. Jung said that the process of individuation is the journey from falsity to authenticity, from fragmentation to wholeness. It doesn't happen in an instant, but through a series of small deaths, the death of illusion, of dependency, of the need to be seen. Each time an illusion dissolves, your soul grows lighter. Each time an old pattern collapses, you move closer to your center. And at that center, you don't find perfection, you find truth. The truth that you were never broken, only disconnected from yourself. The truth that you don't have to become someone else to be loved, you only have to return. The truth that light is not something you must reach for, but something you already are. When you touch this depth of awareness, everything around you begins to rearrange itself. Old relationships dissolve not through conflict, but through incompatibility. New people appear not to fill your emptiness, but to join you in a new chapter of the soul. You realize that love no longer needs to be sought, because it has always been there in how you speak to the world, how you treat yourself, how you look at others with healed eyes. You no longer need someone to help you start over, because you are the new beginning. This stage of reconstruction is also when you learn about sacred boundaries. You understand that love does not mean permission. Compassion does not mean endurance. Honesty does not mean self-destruction. You begin to distinguish clearly between love and attachment, between kindness and self-betrayal. And as you live within these healthy boundaries, your life stops repeating itself. Those who carry the old energy can no longer enter your space, not because of hatred, but because the frequencies no longer match. They will try, but they will find the door closed, not out of anger, but because you have completed the lesson. From this point on, you live through conscious choice. Everything you do, say, and feel carries the weight of awareness. You no longer chase emotions, you listen to them as echoes of your soul. When you are joyful, you savor it. When you are sad, you sit with it. When you are lonely, you embrace it. No more resistance, only observation. No more control, only trust. And as you trust, you begin to see perfection in every moment, even in what once seemed random. An empath who has gone through this reconstruction becomes entirely different. Their eyes are deeper, yet calmer. Their voice softer, yet stronger. They no longer need to talk about light because their very presence is light. They no longer need to prove healing because their energy itself makes others feel safe. This is when the empath truly enters sovereign selfhood, becoming the center of their own universe, defined by nothing external. In alchemical philosophy, this is the stage of rubedo, when the soul has passed through nigredo, darkness, albedo, purification, citrinitas, illumination, and now fuses into the gold of pure consciousness. The true self is born from fire, yet it no longer burns with pain, it glows with the steady light of presence. You are no longer the one who begged for love. You are the one who carries love within you. You no longer fear losing anyone, because you understand that no one truly belongs to anyone. You no longer fear solitude, because you know that every awakened soul must walk through emptiness before being filled with its own essence. When you reach this state, love ceases to be a reward. It becomes a natural response. You love without reason, forgive without condition, give without expectation. You become the person you were once searching for, and that changes every relationship you will ever have. You are no longer drawn to those who wound you, but to those whose souls have also walked through their own darkness. You realize that between two awakened beings, love is not an emotional game. It is the meeting of two frequencies of awareness. And then, one ordinary morning, as sunlight touches your face, you realize that life is no longer a series of problems to solve, but a symphony to savor. You no longer wait for signs from the universe, because you have become the sign. You no longer pray for miracles, because you are the miracle in motion. And you smile, because at last you understand. Everything you lost was simply leading you back to yourself. That is the essence of reconstruction, not to become someone new, but to return to who you truly are, the version of yourself that has walked through fire, made peace with the dark, and embraced everything you once feared. And in that wholeness, true love, true people, and true life will find you not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply and steadily, like the breath of a soul that has finally come home. After you've reconstructed yourself, after every layer of definition has fallen away, after you've stopped trying to be anyone, something strange happens. You no longer crave love the way you used to. Not because your heart has gone cold, but because it has grown still. There are no more sleepless nights wondering, when will they come? No more rituals of praying for the other half. In their place is a vast, tranquil feeling, as if love has always been here, in every breath, in every ordinary moment. Jung called this the paradox of completion. Only when you stop searching for love do you become worthy of it. Before you loved to be validated. Now you love to share. Before you held on so you wouldn't lose. Now you let go to allow things to be what they are. Before you feared silence. Now you live in silence like a wordless song. Love is no longer something you chase. It is the energy you radiate. And when you radiate that frequency, the universe responds not with people who come to test you, but with kindred souls who have walked through their own darkness. Surrender here is not giving up. It is sacred acceptance. You no longer force life to bend to your will. You no longer demand that love look like your old idea of it. You're no longer trying to attract or manifest anything at all. You simply live honestly, quietly, wholly. And in that very moment, your energy becomes so transparent that true love can recognize you. True love does not arrive through strategy, but through resonance. It is not drawn to hunger. It awakens in presence. Surrender is the hardest stage, because it asks you to trust without proof, to trust that everything is unfolding on time, to trust that the one meant for you will arrive without you chasing, to trust that even if no one arrives, you are still enough. And this trust is no longer blind. It is mature, a trust that can only arise after you've passed through breaking, confusion, and rebirth. It is the stillness after the storm, faith after knowing. Within this surrender, you begin to feel love in a wholly different form, no longer confined to two people, but spread across all of life. You love the rain because it teaches you surrender. You love the sunlight because it teaches you presence. You love yourself because you see the universe reflected within you. Every small act, brewing tea, watering a plant, touching a book, becomes a ritual of love. And when you live in this energy, you become a flow of grace. Then one day, true love arrives, not like a lightning strike, but with the quiet of recognition. No fireworks, no mind games, just eyes meeting eyes and souls whispering, "We've found each other." No one tries to possess the other, because both know love cannot be kept only honored. They don't come to complete each other, but to share a wholeness already present. Their love is no longer an emotional addiction, but a dialogue between two consciousnesses. In that moment, you understand that all the years you thought were wasted were simply orbits guiding you home. Everyone you loved, lost, and forgave was a perfect piece of this awakening. No one arrived by mistake. No one left at the wrong time. Every meeting was a ritual. Every loss was a prayer answered. The universe misses not a single tear. It gathers everything, transmutes everything, and returns to you a new heart, not sealed shut, not hardened, but open with wisdom. Love at this level no longer needs vows, because awareness itself has become the vow. Two souls meet not to cling, but to fly together, not to lean on, but to lift each other, not to possess, but to reflect the sacred in one another. This is love as awareness, a state of consciousness in which you no longer simply love someone, you love through them. You see the divine in their eyes, yourself in their breath, and the universe loving itself through the two of you. Surrender also teaches you something essential. No love is ever lost. Even those who did not stay leave an imprint on your soul, like stars that still shine though they've burned out. When you think of them, you don't feel pain, you feel gratitude. You understand that love never ends, it only changes form. One true act of love is one awakening, and every awakening is a rung that brings you closer to your purest self. And then, sitting alone in the late afternoon, watching sunlight fall through the window, you realize how far you've traveled from being shattered by the wrong kind of love, to acceptance, reconstruction, and finally surrender. But the journey isn't over. After true love finds you, the soul opens to a deeper tier where you are no longer merely the beloved, but the bearer of light. Love then crosses the boundary of the personal and becomes a mission. You are called to share what you've learned, to help other souls cross their own night, to show them that no ending is a loss, only a metamorphosis. Surrender is not a stop, it is a door. When you step through it, you find not only true love, but love's meaning. It is no longer a story between you and another, but between the soul and the universe, an endless symphony between light and shadow, learning and remembering, losing and receiving. And within that symphony you understand, love never abandons anyone. It simply waits until you're quiet enough to hear it. When the soul has passed through every dissolution, when the heart has grown weary of resisting and finally bows to truth, a different kind of life begins to sprout from within. No longer a hunger to be loved, no longer an effort to become worthy, but the subtle resurrection of the soul itself, the life Jung called the self, the sacred center that always existed but was buried under ego, memory, and old roles. This resurrection is not loud. It doesn't arrive through drama or miracle, but through simple moments when you see light falling on a wall and realize you're smiling for no reason, when you pass the place that once broke your heart and feel peace, when you hear an old song and shed no more tears. That is when you know You have come home. In the past, love melted you. Now, love stills you. You once loved to fill a void. Now, you love like a river with no destination. You stop seeing life as a string of lessons and begin to experience it as a sacred ritual of awareness. There is no longer right or wrong, no culprit or victim, only souls learning to become light within their own darkness. You look back at those who hurt you, not with hatred, but with quiet gratitude. Without them, you would never have learned the greatest lesson of all. No one can steal your light, except when you forget that you are its source. Resurrection is not a sudden change, but a gentle process of reconciliation. You reconcile with your childhood, the child who believed they had to please everyone to be loved. You reconcile with your former selves, the one who forgave too much, waited too long, kept too quiet. You no longer deny or feel ashamed of them. You open your arms to them like a mother receiving her wandering children and whisper, "Now I understand each of you needed love." Then the inner darkness ceases to be an enemy and becomes an ally, for you know no light endures unless it is born from darkness. In alchemy, this is rubedo, when the metal, having been burned and dissolved, becomes gold. In spirit, it is the moment you stop searching for a twin flame outside and realize the true twin was the shadow you've just embraced. When you can see both light and darkness within and love them without needing to change them, you become a whole being. This wholeness shakes the energy around you. Everything begins to change, not because you're trying, but because you've become a different field. Those who once made you tremble now fumble before your calm. Those who once manipulated you find nothing to grasp. Those who share your frequency begin to appear gentle, deep, respectful. They don't come to possess you, but to shine with you. In their eyes, you see yourself not as a role, but as your true essence. They don't need you to be this or that. They simply look and say, "I remember you, though perhaps we've never met." That is how souls who have walked through darkness recognize one another. The resurrection of the soul also comes with a separation from the subtlest illusion of all the illusion that you are fully healed. You understand that healing does not mean the absence of pain. It means knowing how to love even while you are in pain. When sadness visits, you don't run. You invite it to sit, pour it a cup of tea, and listen to its message. Every emotion is no longer an intruder, but a messenger. Anger tells you a boundary has been crossed. Fear tells you there is a part that needs protection. Loneliness tells you that you are separating from yourself. And when you listen without judgment, every emotion dissolves into light. You no longer need a healer, because you have become the healer. You also realize that forgiveness is not an act, but a state. You don't have to try to forgive, because there is nothing left to forgive. When you see that every soul acts from its level of consciousness, resentment evaporates like morning mist. You are no longer attached to human justice, because you have understood cosmic justice. Every action returns to the energy that birthed it. No one escapes, but neither is anyone truly punished. They are simply given chances to learn. And you, once the sufferer, become the compassionate witness. You look at the world not through the eyes of the ego, but through the gaze of the soul. At this stage, the empath begins to shine naturally, not with flashy light, but with the light of stillness. Others feel peaceful around you, not because of what you say, but because your energy reminds them of what they have forgotten, that they too are light. You become a mirror of remembrance, the mirror that helps others recall their own sacred nature. And that is the highest mission of the empath, to awaken, not to save. Resurrection also deepens your understanding of fate. You realize the right person is not a reward after suffering, but the natural result of the frequency you carry. True love doesn't arrive because you are more deserving, but because you have become resonant with it. When you stop broadcasting fear, the universe stops sending people who mirror that fear. When you broadcast peace, peaceful love appears not by miracle, but by energetic resonance. From here, you enter a rare stage, living as a soul in human form. You work without grasping. You love without demanding an outcome. You speak less, but every word carries the weight of truth. You are present in each moment, washing your hands, breathing, seeing, listening, as if the universe exists only in that instant. And indeed, for a resurrected soul, every moment is eternity. No one can truly teach you this. No book can describe its feeling. It cannot be learned. It can only be remembered. For the resurrection of the soul is not a journey towards something, but a journey of remembering that you never left the source. You don't need to climb a mountain to see God. You only need to look within. The flame was never extinguished. It was only veiled by the smoke of fear and attachment. And when the smoke clears, you see it plainly. You are the flame. That is when the empath becomes the keeper of flame. No longer fearing the dark, no longer craving the light, they stand at the center where both are one. In their eyes, the world holds no enemies, only souls moving at different tempos to the same music. And when they say, "I love you," they are not speaking to a single person, but to all of life, because they know that at the deepest layer of existence, there is only one soul experiencing itself through billions of forms. When the soul has resurrected, love is no longer the story of two people. Each relationship becomes a living field of energy, a third entity, unseen yet powerful, born at the intersection of two souls. Jung called this the third, the spiritual mediating entity. In every deep connection, there are always three presences: you, the other, and the soul of the bond itself. When both are conscious, this third soul becomes light, a channel through which the universe's love flows. But when one falls back into unconsciousness, that soul becomes a field for karma, where both shadows begin talking to each other under the guise of love. Most people know only two entities, me and you, and so they struggle for control. They believe love is possession, that safety requires making the other belong to me. But once awakened, you see the third presence standing between you, the soul of the relationship. You understand that neither of you owns the other. You are simply keepers of the flame for a soul being born between you. Every word, action, and feeling you offer into the bond becomes fuel for that entity. If you feed it fear, it suffocates. If you feed it trust, it blossoms. If you feed it gratitude, it becomes sacred. Love does not die. It merely reflects the energy you have given it. Entering love with awareness, you begin to ask, what is our third soul saying? It's no longer, "You're right, I'm wrong," or "I'm hurt, you must make it right." Instead, you listen to the relationship's energy like listening to the breath of a living being. Some days that soul breathes deep, warm, and easy. Other days it is tired and needs quiet. And you learn to care for love as you would care for a life, not through control, but through presence. This is a level of love understood only by souls who have walked through darkness. Only after losing everything do you learn how to lose nothing. You no longer try to hold the other, because you know anything held by fear will dissolve by fear. You hold through awareness, that is, you hold with light. When the other needs to go, you open the door. When they return, you open your heart. When they fall silent, you send them into the light within your chest. Because you know, neither of you owns the other. You are both in service to the third soul learning to love through you. The third soul is where love becomes ritual. It requires no forms or religious ceremony. It is itself a living rite. When two people face each other consciously, without defenses, without manipulation, without winning or hiding, a door opens. Love is no longer an exchange of feelings, but a communion between two energy fields. It is like two notes touching, creating a sound that never existed before. At this level, you recognize a profound truth. Every relationship is sacred. Whether brief or long, whole or unfinished, each one births a third soul to reflect what you must learn. Some relationships come to teach you love, others to teach you release. Some people appear only to open a small door within you, and when they go, the door remains. When you understand this, you stop asking, "Why did they leave?" and begin asking, "What mission did our soul complete?" The unawakened see separation as loss. The awakened see it as completion. When the lesson is done, the third soul dissolves into light, like mist in the dawn. No one betrays anyone. The energy simply reaches its natural end. And in that dissolution, you feel gratitude not for what was good or bad, but because everything was truly lived. In awakened relationships, the third soul becomes a conduit of light. When two people love with awareness, they do more than heal each other, they help heal the world around them. Every time they speak truth, their shared field sends out resonant waves that break layers of collective ignorance. When they forgive, that energy spreads and softens others. When they honor boundaries, that frequency helps the whole world remember the value of freedom. Their love is no longer private. It is a cosmic vocation. At some point, you will realize that every soul you've met has been part of the third along the way. They did not come to complete you, but to open another dimension of your soul. The one who hurt you helped you find your boundaries. The one who loved you helped you learn to receive. The one who left taught you how to let go. All of it prepared you for this stage where you can love without possession and bond without losing your freedom. With these eyes, every love becomes transparent. There is no wrong relationship, only necessary reflections. And you see, the universe never sends the wrong person. Everyone you have loved is a soul in the great orchestra, where each piece can only be fully heard once you've listened to both the high and low notes. The third presence is the music. It sounds whenever two hearts resonate, and it falls silent whenever one falls out of tune. But silence is also a note, because it allows another sound to be born. When you realize this, you no longer fear losing the one you love. True love is never lost. It simply shifts from form to formless, from two to one, from you and me to us. The third, the soul of love, proves that love never belongs to people. People belong to love. True love, once it has been tested, once it has been washed clean of the will to possess and the fear of loss, returns to its most original form, a current. It does not stand still. It does not seek to be held. It needs no reason to exist. It simply flows, because flowing is its nature. Like water, love finds its own way through narrow crevices, over rough stones, seeping into barren ground, and finally merging with the sea. Water does not compete, yet it persists. It is not loud, yet nothing can stop it. And like water, true love cannot be imprisoned. Empaths once loved like a waterfall, rushing, powerful, pouring out with all their energy. They gave everything, believing the more fiercely they loved, the more love would return. But they learned that a waterfall, however beautiful, runs dry without a source. True love does not come from a burst. It comes from the underground river of awareness. It doesn't need to prove itself, because it is already enough. When the empath learns this, love within them changes direction, not downward in a torrent, but outward in quiet expansion, soaking the earth gentle, still, and deeply nourishing. At this level, the empath understands that love is no longer something you do, it is a state of being. There is no need to say, "I love you," because every action, every glance, every breath is already love. There is no longer any effort to maintain a relationship, because they know every true connection sustains itself on the energy of truth. And when truth is withdrawn, that relationship dissolves like morning mist, not because someone is at fault, but because the frequencies no longer match. Just as water does not resist the shore, true love does not resist circumstances. When the other wants to leave, the empath doesn't cling. When the other wants to return, they don't shut the door. Not because they are weak, but because they have learned the art of flow. Within that flow, everything that arrives and departs carries a message. A meeting is a reminder that we are still open. A parting is a signal that we need to change course. A silence is an invitation to turn inward. And so life becomes a sacred river in which every bend has meaning. Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you embrace transforms." True love cannot live inside resistance. It grows only in acceptance. Acceptance that the other has their own path, that no one is born to fill another, and that sometimes the strongest act of love is to let go in peace. When you stop fighting the current, you begin to hear its voice. A river never asks, "Where will I go?" It simply flows, and therefore it always arrives exactly where it needs to be. When the empath learns to let love flow through them, they become like an empty vessel they do not hold, they conduct. Love passes through them like light, through a window, warming the room without leaving a trace, and it is precisely this emptiness that makes them free. Once, they thought freedom meant needing no one. Now they understand true freedom is the ability to love without being bound. Not non-attachment, but attachment without fear of loss. Not withholding, but giving without expectation, because in the current of love, giving and receiving are one. The river does not distinguish where any drop has come from. All sources merge into one when they meet. Likewise, true love does not care who began first or who loves more. At the highest frequency, love is no longer an interaction between two egos, but a current of energy between two souls. There is no question of right or wrong, of who hurt whom, of who should apologize. There is only one movement, toward truth. And when truth is lived, everything else finds its balance. The river of love also teaches you that every attempt to control is futile. Whenever you try to hold water in your hands, it slips away. Whenever you try to define love, it vanishes. But when you open your hands and allow it to flow, you begin to feel the sacredness of the water. It does not belong to you, yet it moves through you, and that is the miracle. The empath realizes their task is not to keep love, but to keep themselves clear so that love can pass through without being muddied. Living in this current, you become sensitive to subtle signals. You know when the energy between two people is drying up, when space is needed, when to step back so the flow can renew itself. You stop using words to prolong what is already dead. Stop using hope to mask what is no longer alive. Instead, you trust the rhythm of the universe, that if something belongs with you, it will return in a better form. If not, it will dissolve so that you become lighter. Then love begins to reveal its highest shape, peace. No more drama, no more suspense, no more what happens next. Only simple mornings, quiet conversations, gentle, conscious touch. You don't need anyone to do anything to prove their love, because their presence is proof enough. At this level, love becomes a meditative state. When two people can sit side by side without speaking, simply feeling the shared current moving between them, that is love. When you can watch someone walk out of your life and remain at peace without resentment, that is love too. The river of love carries you to a deeper realization. Everything you once called loss is transformation. Those who leave do not take love from you. They take away only the energy that no longer resonates, so that the purer portion of love can keep flowing. Just as the river forever runs, yet the sea remains full, so it is with the love within you. The more you give, the more abundant it becomes. Scarcity fades, because you are connected directly to the source. At that point, you no longer need to find the right person. You only need to be in the right frequency. When your energy becomes clear, compatible souls will find you without effort. You don't call them with words, you call them with your frequency. For true love is not found, it is recognized. And only when you live in the flow are you quiet enough to recognize it. And like a river, love has its seasons. At times it is as smooth as autumn water. At times it surges like a flood. But no matter what, the river never doubts its direction. It doesn't need a map. It trusts the slope of the earth. And you, once awakened, no longer need to control love. You trust the slope of the soul. Every drop is moving toward the sea, and every soul is moving toward union. One day, looking back, you will smile, understanding this. Love never left you. It only changed form from passion to understanding, from longing to stillness, from the desire to be loved to the presence of love. You become the river, and the river is you. You no longer have love, you are love. And that is when you enter the next chapter of the soul's journey, becoming a bearer of light. For when love within you has become a current, When you no longer grasp or control, but allow life to move, something profound happens. Light begins to radiate from within you, no longer limited to one relationship, no longer reserved for one person. It pours through every action, every look, every moment you are present. That is when you cease to be the one seeking light. You have become the light. In this phase, the empath is no longer merely someone who lives for emotion, but one who is awake within emotion. They understand that every energy they emit affects the world around them, and so they begin to live with deep mindfulness in every thought and word. They do not try to inspire, their presence itself is inspiration. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." When an empath enters a room, the energy changes not because they try to change it, but because they have become a catalyst for transformation. You begin to realize that healing is no longer a job, it is the natural side effect of light. As you pass someone by, you don't need to offer advice or tell your story. You need only truly see them without judgment, without pity, as if you were looking at yourself in another form. In that instant, a quiet miracle happens. They feel seen, heard, allowed to exist. And in that feeling of being seen, a part of them begins to heal. To be a bearer of light does not mean to be a guru or a savior. On the contrary, the more awake you become, the more humble you are. You know no one needs saving, because every soul is already on its way home. You are a lamp along the road, lighting a short stretch so they can remember their direction. You don't say, "Follow me," you say, "Look within." Your light is not meant to create dependence, but to help others ignite their own. A bearer of light knows the world doesn't need more polished speakers. It needs souls who truly live what they know. They don't try to project positivity, they live truthfully, embracing moments of weakness, silence, even apparent darkness. For they know light is not the absence of shadow, but the presence of awareness within it. That authenticity is what makes them trustworthy. They are not perfect, but they are real. On this path, the empath often discovers that the light they bring can make others uncomfortable, because light exposes what some prefer to hide. When you are no longer afraid to face truth, your presence becomes a mirror that makes the unready feel uneasy. They may resist you, attack you, assign motives you do not have. But the bearer of light understands. This is the natural reaction of darkness when illuminated. You need not defend yourself or prove anything. Let your light do its work. Darkness cannot defeat light. It can only exist where light has not yet arrived. You also recognize a wonder. Light does not discriminate. It shines on everyone, enemy, lover, stranger. When you are truly awake, you cannot love only one person, because love has become the way you see the world. You no longer choose who is worthy of love. You simply love because that is your nature. And this unconditional love makes you a sower of seeds. Wherever you go, seeds of awareness are planted. Some sprout at once, some sleep in the soil for years, but eventually all will grow. A bearer of light no longer seeks recognition. They understand that true light is never praised, it simply illuminates. Perhaps no one knows their name, perhaps they live quietly. Yet everywhere they go bears the trace of light. A kind word, a gentle act, a silence full of understanding. And it is precisely these small things that are changing the world, little by little. When the light within you becomes steady, you begin to realize that service is no longer a burden, it is a joy. You help not to prove you are good, but because you cannot help helping. You share because your energy overflows, not because you lack recognition. You give not to receive, but because giving is the natural way to keep the current of energy fresh. Like a river, water stays clear only as it continues to flow. A bearer of light also learns the hardest lesson: to stand alone without being lonely. True light is always ahead of its time. There will be seasons when you feel misunderstood, set apart, labeled too sensitive or too deep. In those moments, remember that every lighthouse stands alone. It doesn't chase ships or seek to be loved. It simply stands and shines. And then the lost ships find their way back to it. Jung once said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." A bearer of light is living proof of this. They have passed through the hell of emotion, betrayal, and loss, and it is precisely those deep roots that steady them as they rise into the light. They do not talk about light as theory, they become light through experience. At this level, the empath no longer sees the world in black and white. They see the whole picture. They understand that both good and evil are movements of the same energy, energy seeking its way back to source. Therefore, they no longer fear the dark, nor try to annihilate it. They simply illuminate it, and by doing so, the darkness dissolves. This is the law of energetic transformation, understood by every spiritual master, but lived only by those who have suffered deeply enough. When you become a bearer of light, you need not leave the world. You still work, still love, still shoulder everyday responsibilities. But the way you live has changed. You are present in the smallest acts. Washing dishes becomes meditation. Listening becomes healing. Silence becomes prayer. You no longer need to look for sacred places because you have become the sacred place. The world begins to mirror you. The people you meet cease to be tests and become companions. Situations that once frightened you become opportunities to love. You pass through spaces once heavy with painful memories, and your heart no longer trembles. You realize you have become the person you once needed when you were lost, and that is the clearest sign of healing. Living at the frequency of light, you feel that everything has its own rhythm, the rhythm of the soul. You do not push anyone to awaken faster, nor pull anyone along, because you know each candle needs its own wind to flare. You simply tend your part of the flame, and in silence you watch the sky gradually brighten with other candles. Light spreads not through noise, but through frequency. At last, the bearer of light realizes that the most sacred thing they can do for the world is to return to being human. Not a saint, not an enlightened figure, simply human, but whole. A human who can cry without being weak, love without fear, give without needing, and stand alone without feeling lacking. In that very simplicity, the soul touches greatness. And so the empath's journey comes full circle, from the wounded to the luminous, from the one who begged for love to the embodiment of love, from the one once swallowed by darkness to the one who can walk through it with eyes open. And then you understand you were never saved. You simply remembered who you are. When the light in you is steady, no longer swayed by the world's reactions, when you no longer need anyone to validate your worth and have no desire to prove anything to anyone, that is when the journey of union begins. This is no longer a battle between darkness and light, ego and soul, but a melting of all opposites, where you no longer separate yourself from anything. In Jung's language, this is individuation at its peak, the union of conscious and unconscious, of masculine and feminine, of the small human and the great soul. The empath once believed light was salvation, that if they were good enough, loving enough, forgiving enough, the darkness would disappear. But going far enough, they realized darkness cannot be destroyed, it can only be embraced. Every shadowy part, anger, jealousy, fear, the craving for power, the hunger to be seen is no longer an enemy, but a forsaken fragment waiting to be witnessed. When you are brave enough to look at them and draw them to your chest like lost children, they melt into light. Union doesn't happen in meditation halls or ceremonies. It happens in the most ordinary moments, when you stop judging your feelings, when you say, "I'm angry," and that's okay, when you cry without shame, when you laugh for no reason. That is when soul and human fuse. Love is no longer an outer goal, but becomes an inner breath. You no longer seek a other half, because you have become whole. In this stage, the empath begins to see the eternal couple within, the masculine animus and the feminine anima, the two poles Jung called the sacred marriage, the holy nuptials of the soul's halves. The feminine in you symbolizes intuition, feeling, receptivity, the capacity to listen. The masculine symbolizes action, boundaries, direction, and the power to manifest. Unintegrated, You either live too much in the feminine feeling, deeply yet easily wounded and overrun, or too much in the masculine, strong yet rigid and lacking softness. But when the two begin to dance to the same music, you become complete. No more division, no more I need someone to protect me because the masculine within you has learned to stand firm. No more I need someone to understand me because the feminine within you has learned to listen to herself. You no longer need others to compensate. You simply wish to share. And love, in its highest form, is the sharing of two souls already united within themselves. When you are here, the outer world starts reflecting that harmony. Those you meet no longer trigger wounds. They mirror the qualities you've integrated. Old relationships that once taught you loss become memories held with gratitude. You look back at those who hurt you, and instead of hatred, you smile not out of forgiveness, but from understanding that no one was ever truly wrong. There were only souls learning the same lessons: how to love and be loved, how to control and how to let go, how to fear and how to be free. Union also means making peace with time itself. Once you lived in the past regret, pain, blame, or you ran to the future expectation, anxiety, imagined tomorrows. Now you live in the expanded present, where each moment contains the whole universe. You understand there is no before or after, only now. And now is where the soul dwells. You begin to move to the rhythm of presence, where even the smallest actions carry a sacred frequency. How you breathe, drink water, touch a hand, look at a flower, everything becomes meditation in motion. Union does not remove suffering, it transforms it. When sadness comes, you no longer ask, when will it pass? But what has it come to teach? When anger rises, you no longer suppress it. You listen. What part of me needs protection? When you love, you no longer fear being hurt, because you know true love cannot be harmed. Only the ego is wounded. The soul only knows how to expand. And in that expansion, you begin to feel a joy that depends on nothing. It is the joy of accepting yourself entirely. No need to be better, more loved, or to achieve anything at all. Joy for simply being, for existing, for breathing, for being human. And when you touch that joy, you recognize that every journey, every pain, every disappointment before was simply different ways the universe was leading you to this moment, the moment you came home. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Union is precisely that privileged moment. You are no longer a victim of the past, no longer a pursuer of the future. You become the creator of your reality. You understand that every thought, every feeling, every vibration within you is a seed sown into the energetic field of the universe, and the universe, as the truest mirror, will return to you that exact frequency. Union is when you recognize that you are the universe experiencing itself in human form. Everyone you have ever met, every place you have ever been, everything you have ever loved or lost are fragments of yourself playing out to help you recognize your larger essence. When you understand this, you no longer need to seek God or light somewhere far away, because you see the divine in every cell, in every breath, in every drop of rain that touches the earth. God is not above, He is breathing through you. And when you realize this, you no longer feel lonely. The loneliness that weighed on you for so long dissolves like smoke. For loneliness exists only when you believe there is you and others. But in union, there are no others. Every soul is one body of water in different shapes. Separation is only an illusion. And you smile in silence because at last you understand no one leaves, no one stays. Everything is simply moving within the same ocean. At the summit of this journey, the empath becomes a reconciler of the world, not through words but through energy. Their presence brings balance to the spaces they enter. They are the ones who can stand in the middle of conflict without being swept up in it, who can see both sides without taking sides, who can love both the victim and the one who caused harm, because they perceive the fear within both. They become a bridge between pole and pole, between heaven and earth, between the human and the soul. And it is they souls who have gone through hell and returned with light who are quietly helping the world awaken, not through miracles, but through unwavering presence. Because in a world where everything is polarizing, the unified empath is the living symbol of balance. They show that one can be both strong and gentle, both rational and emotional, both human and sacred. When you reach union, love is no longer a part of life, it is life. Everything you touch carries the energy of love. You cook with love, write with love, work with love. You see love in the rain, in the sunset, in the eyes of a stranger, in your own tears. You no longer ask, how do I love? Because you have become love. And in that moment, the universe smiles. For this is the ultimate aim of every journey. To bring you back to union. Not union with someone else, but with your own primordial nature, unconditional love. Every wound you endured, every narcissist you encountered, every tear you shed were all instruments to break the shell of separation and lead you back to that oneness. You realize there is no before and after. No, they hurt me. No, I must forgive. There is a single current, the current of evolution. And when you merge with it, you become an inseparable part of the heartbeat of the cosmos, where there are no victims, no saviors, only consciousness loving itself. After you have passed through every layer of darkness, melted into light, and returned to yourself, you might think the journey is over. But this is only the beginning of a new spiral. The spiral of service, of creation, of loving with awareness. For when the soul has awakened, the universe sends you a quiet invitation. Return to the world and carry that light. Oh, this invitation does not speak in words, but arrives through the most ordinary situations. A person who needs you to listen, a child who needs to be understood, a chaotic world that needs someone to hold peace. And you, the one who once collapsed, who once walked through hell, who once believed you could never love again, are called once more. Not to endure, but to transmit light through your presence. When the universe invites, it does not ask you to become someone else. It simply asks you to be yourself with awareness. Not a perfect person, but a real one. Not someone who knows everything, but someone willing to listen. Not a preacher, but one who lives. For true light does not come from cleverness, but from unwavering presence. You will see that the souls you meet from here on will not resemble those from before. In the past, the universe sent you people who triggered your wounds so you could learn the lessons of shadow. Now it sends you souls of the same frequency so that together you can sow light. They do not come to make you stronger, you already are. They come to make the world lighter. With you, at this stage, everything you have learned clicks into place. You understand why the narcissist appeared in your life not to destroy you, but to awaken you. You understand why you had to be alone, not because you were abandoned, but to learn to listen to your soul. You understand why old love had to end, because you needed space for true love to move through. Everything that once caused you pain now becomes the sacred language your soul uses to converse with the universe. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But once you have brought the unconscious into light, you are no longer led by karma, you become the weaver of destiny. Then every action, however small, matters. A loving gaze can change a heart. A word spoken from awareness can calm a storm. A silence can heal an entire room. And so life ceases to be an examination and becomes a rite. You wake and feel gratitude simply for being alive. You see sunlight on the wall and feel the universe's love touching your skin. You eat a simple meal and tears well up, not from sadness, but from recognizing the sacredness of small things. You move through the world seeking nothing more, because you have found everything within yourself. But the universe's invitation is not only for you to enjoy peace, it asks you to carry that peace farther. You will see places where darkness is still dense, people still hurting as you once were, souls still fighting themselves. And you understand that the light in you is not to be kept. It must be shared. Not by trying to change anyone, but by standing among them with an open heart. There will be times when carrying light makes you tired. The old world still runs on the energies of fear and control. When you live by love and awareness, you may feel like you're moving against the current. But unlike before, you no longer resist the water. You know that simply by continuing to be yourself, the current will gradually change. Light does not argue with darkness. It shines and darkness disappears. At this stage, the empath understands deeply that life is sacred, not sacred in a church, but in every breath. The sacred is in washing your hands with presence, embracing someone with sincerity, working with a spirit of service. You no longer seek great meaning in philosophy or religion, but in the living experience of the present. Then love is no longer an action, it is essence. You do not love because, you love by. You love by the way you walk, speak, look, breathe. Everyone you meet becomes an opportunity to love, not romantic love, but love as the energy of life. You love because you are love flowing through human form. And then the universe opens another layer of awareness. Conscious love is not only between people, but between humans and everything. You feel connected to trees, to earth, to water, to living beings you once thought small. The sense of me and the world dissolves. You are the world. Everything you do for others, you are doing for yourself. Every harm you cause, you feel in your own heart. And from there, your compassion becomes a new creative force of life. The empath who has passed through union begins to create from this energy. They write, they paint, they speak, they help, they build not for recognition, but to reflect the beauty of the soul. What they create is no longer mere content, but energy encoded with consciousness. Whoever touches it feels a shift within. No logic is needed, no explanation, simply being present in that frequency awakens the soul. And then one day, you will stand in the very place that once broke you, and you will smile. No resentment, no regret, only a deep, wordless gratitude. You will whisper within, "Thank you for shattering me so I could become this light." That is the moment the soul is liberated. Not because it escaped suffering, but because it understood the sacred purpose of it. For it was pain itself that opened the way home. Without those breakdowns, you would never have discovered the true power of love. Without those losses, you would never have learned the art of letting go. Without those dark nights, you would never have realized that the light within you had always been there. And when that understanding dawns, every sorrow you've ever carried turns into the light of gratitude. The journey is now complete. No more teachers, no more lessons, no more questions. Because you have become the answer. The universe no longer sends you tests, but opportunities to serve. You become the hand of the universe, not through effort, but through natural flow. Wherever you go, the universe moves with you. Whatever you speak, the universe speaks through you. Whoever you love, the universe loves through you. You become the heartbeat of life itself. And then, in absolute stillness, you hear the universe's final whisper. You once asked why I sent you to the narcissist, why I let you lose everything, why you had to endure such loneliness. Now you understand. I did not punish you, I trained you, so you could carry my light into places no one else dared to go. You are the proof that love is stronger than darkness. And now, you no longer need me to speak, because you and I are one. That is when you weep, but not from pain. These are tears of realization that you were never separate from love. You were only sent on a journey to learn how to bring it back. And now that journey is complete. When you step back into the world, everything may look the same. The streets, the people, the work, the familiar sounds, but you know nothing is as it was. Because the world does not change with time, it changes with the level of your awareness, and now everything you see is illuminated. The world is no longer chaos, but a sacred song your soul is singing with the universe. You realize that the journey never truly ends, it only transforms. Each time you love, you are invited to go deeper into love. Each time you are silent, you hear the universe more clearly. Each time you give, you are emptied to receive. The circle never stops, and that is life itself. And when someone asks you, how did you get through all of it? You simply smile. Because there was never anything to get through. There was only a current to move through with awareness. You no longer need to tell the stories of your pain because they have dissolved into light. You no longer need to prove your strength because true strength needs no display. You simply live, and the way you live becomes the answer to everything. Because in the end, this is what the journey wanted you to understand. The universe did not send you here to become perfect. It sent you here to become real. And in that authenticity, light is born.